Hi, Bestie. So, I want to talk to you about something that we all do. Mm, Sometimes too much, and sometimes not enough. Apologizing. Whether you're a chronic sorry or you know this person who says it before they even speak, or struggles to say the words when it matters most. Friend, this episode is for you. It doesn't matter which side of the pendulum you are on. Because here, friend, is the truth. Apologizing is a powerful relational tool. But when misused, it actually serves to disconnect us from our sense of self. It creates resentment and can often reinforce unhealthy relationship dynamics. Today, you and I are going to dive into the psychology behind when to say sorry, when to stop saying sorry, and how to apologize in a way that actually builds trust, clarity, and healing. Seems important, right? Here's the thing, friends. Apologies are actually foundational to human connection and psychological repair. And repair, by the way, is even more important than the rupture itself. And ruptures are things that happen in any relationship. It could be your spouse, could be a friend, a parent, a colleague, doesn't matter. Ruptures happen in all relationships, meaning something didn't feel good or I feel disconnected. We have to learn to repair, and apology is a part of a repair. Studies show that women in particular are socialized to over apologize, sometimes just for existing, for taking up space, or asserting themselves. Research talks about that women report more perceived offenses and thus apologize more. Not because they're actually doing more wrong, but because they've often internalized this belief that their presence or needs are burdensome. Kind of silly, huh? Meanwhile, under apologizing can create rifts in relationships, ruptured trust, and block healing, which is what I was talking about earlier. That we have to repair these ruptures because when we apologize without congruence, just saying sorry to avoid discomfort, to not take responsibility, we often miss that transformational power that a true, real, genuine apology has. I'm actually willing to bet that you have either given a disingenuine apology or received one, and you know how that feels. So, then when we start to add in things like attachment styles, NLP beliefs, positive psychology, there is so much to unpack with this specific concept. So, let's first just kind of talk about what it is, what it isn't. So, you and I have this really great picture of what we're talking about. First, friend, let's talk about what it is not. A true apology is not a form of self erasing. It's not a strategy to control how someone feels. It's not a way to silence discomfort. It's not a tool for codependency or people pleasing. A true apology is a conscious choice to take responsibility. It's an act of emotional maturity and empathy. It's a bridge that actually restores relational rupture. And it is a signal of internal alignment and self leadership. I don't know about you. I mean, you're my bestie. I'm sure it's probably true of you too. But I have had to lead myself to apologize before. I've had to lead myself to fall on my sword essentially and go, listen, I care more about this relationship or whatever it is we're dealing with than this silliness over here. I care about you. I value a relationship with you. So when you think about from like an NLP perspective, Apologizing is powerful when it comes from clarity and intention. Again, the language patterns that we use, which NLP is all about patterns, it's those like, I'm sorry, but, it's that. It's, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And those actually negate the very healing that we're trying to create. Uh, Again, those language patterns are disempowering in terms of the power that comes with a real, genuine apology and not a, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. NLP encourages clean, direct language. For example, I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. That's not the kind of person I want to be. That likely is going to feel very different than well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I, I'm sorry that you feel like I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that you feel sad. Well, I'm sorry, but if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that. No, I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. That's not the kind of person I want to be. Sometimes we even get this silly concept in our minds where um, we feel like we cannot possibly ever give someone an apology because then we're saying that whatever transpired is okay. A lot of times though, there is an ownership for that we need to take, especially in relationship. There's ownership that we need to take for our role in something, even if our role in something is 5%. Like maybe how whatever happened is 95% if we're looking for blame, the other person's fault. And yet, I can totally say, I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. That's not the kind of person I want to be. Maybe what I said was mean or that my tone was awful. So I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. Now, I might not uh, want to take away the content, the overall context of what I'm saying, but I can be sorry for how I spoke to someone. I hope that you're really getting this because people that are great apologizers have great relationships. Again, not over apologizing, clear, direct apologies. So, how does attachment even play into this? If you have an anxious attachment style, you are likely to over apologize in order to avoid abandonment. You tend to be more of that person that feels like they take up space, or I'm sorry for interrupting you, or I'm sorry for this. And by the way, I'm sorry for interrupting you could actually deserve an apology. And it's like this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could use, it's like you're talking to your waiter and you could use some more water and you're like, I'm sorry to bother you, but can I get some more water when it's actually their job? Now, again, I'm not talking about being rude to them. I'm just saying don't need to apologize for needing water. People who have an avoidant attachment style may actually resist apologizing due to the discomfort or vulnerability that's a part of that. And then you have more securely attached people, and those people tend to apologize with clarity and take responsibility without shame. And we need to take responsibility. I'm not a perfect person. You are not a perfect person. Listen to one of the previous episodes, one or two ago. My brain can't remember right now. All about perfectionism. Maybe you need to kick that to the curb. It is okay to not be perfect and to apologize. So let's talk about how to apologize, but also when not to do that. So we want to apologize when our actions have caused harm, whether it's intentional or not. It's so interesting because a lot of times, and I see this in couples, and it's also because they have their own internal dialogue that's happening, where instead of just simply taking responsibility, taking ownership for whatever they did, they're like, well, I'm sorry, but like, If you really understood why I did this, then you wouldn't be so upset with me. And what it does is it actually takes away from the apology. Sometimes we just need to go, yeah, I totally dropped the ball here. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? Versus try the need to over explain yourself. Now, I get in relationship that sometimes it really is actually very important, uh, that we need our partner or friend or whoever to understand the intention behind whatever it is that happened. But maybe we need to not do it in that moment. I'm really sorry for how I spoke to you. I'm really sorry for dropping the ball. Because if it's like, well, and I want you to just like, I'm sorry that this happened, but like the reason it did was because my car burned, my car broke down and my kids were being bananas and whatever it is. I mean, I recently had to do this in my job. I dropped a ball. I'm a professor, and there was a ball that I dropped, and I didn't make excuses for it. I just said this was unacceptable, and will you forgive that this happened? And I just took ownership of what happened rather than trying to explain it away, even though internally uh, I had reasons for why it happened. Ultimately, there was still an expectation that I missed. So when we try to over explain, we can actually take away from the apology. We also need to apologize when there's been a relational rupture that we want to repair. Again, I come back to research. The rupture is not the issue. Or it is, I mean, it's bad. We wish that it didn't happen, but ultimately the repair is the thing that's most important. The repair actually strengthens the relationship. It's when we have ruptures and ruptures and ruptures over time that it makes it much more difficult to repair. We also want to apologize when we violated our own values. Have you ever done that? Have you ever violated your own values when you look back and you're like, that is not who I am? Like, I think about, for example, if you were to value kindness and then you spoke to someone meanly, there was a lack of kindness. That's a violation of your own values. That's a great place to apologize. So, how do we do this well? We want to acknowledge the impact. I realize that what I said hurt you. I'm just going to again point out that that's very different than I'm sorry that you feel that way. Sorry that you feel hurt. I realize that what I said hurt you. That's acknowledging the impact. Then you take ownership. I know that I was reactive, and that's not okay. Then you want to express genuine regret. Keyword genuine. That's not the kind of friend, partner, person that I want to be. I have not shown up as my best self. And then you want to offer restitution or change. I'm learning and I'm committed to doing better. And sometimes this also includes what you're committed to doing. Maybe that's seeing a therapist, counselor, coach. Maybe that's I have accountability. Maybe it's you're talking about it. Whatever it is, I am learning and committed to doing better by X, Y, and Z. So let's talk about when not to apologize. We don't want to apologize for having boundaries, for taking up space or having needs, just like your water's empty and you could use another water, for saying no, for someone else's emotional reaction that isn't about your behavior, because we can't control that. The only person that we can control is ourselves. And for existing in your fullness, being fully who you were created to be. When we apologize for those things, we diminish ourselves. So, the way that you stop over apologizing, friend, is that you replace I'm sorry with thank you. For example, instead of saying, sorry, I'm running late, you say, thank you for your patience. You can reframe your beliefs like, I'm safe to be seen. My presence is not a problem. The world is not going to burn down and fall apart because I'm late. Thank you for your patience. A couple of the ways that you stop under apologizing are: you need to practice self reflection over self defense. Again, it's that need to explain yourself, practicing self reflection over self defense. You also want to build your capacity for discomfort. A lot of times, people that over apologize would say that they have anxiety. I come back to an anxious attachment style, is that you really build the capacity for discomfort of like, this doesn't feel good that I am asking for water. And you really focus on what is within your control is your response. That's it. You stop under apologizing by self reflection, by growing in your ability to have discomfort and focusing on what is within your control. Now, I want to add to this because a lot of people, when they think about saying I'm sorry, apologizing, excuse me, when they think about apologizing, what they think of is I'm sorry. And by the way, I'm sorry is an important part of an apology. The second part to that also is asking for forgiveness. Have you ever had someone say to you, I'm sorry? And then that was it. Like, for lack of a better phrasing, the energetic exchange here is one way, one direction. It only moves towards someone. And so it's almost like this open loop. I mean, somebody can say, I'm sorry, and you're just like, okay. Or I bet you've said, I'm sorry to someone, and they're like, they shrug their shoulders, okay. But it left something open, something empty, something that just didn't seem to come around correctly. That's the second part, is when we say, I'm sorry, we also need to say, will you forgive me? Because when we ask that, it's like we get to close the loop. You're requiring something, asking for something from the other person. Now, the other person could say, you know what? I'm not ready to forgive you. And you don't have any control over that. You can go, okay, is there anything that I can do to help facilitate forgiveness here? But you can't control that. And maybe they say yes. I mean, I want you to think about how silly this would be if you're like, I'm so sorry, but could you get me a water when you have a chance? And will you forgive me for wanting water? And that's a good um, example of when you don't need to ask for when you don't need to say you're sorry. It's like, if you need to ask for forgiveness for wanting water, that's going to seem really silly. So I want you to really think about how powerful it is to close the loop. A lot of times, if you have been the offending party, whatever that means, if there's something that you've needed to take responsibility for, it's also going to feel good internally to go, okay, they forgive me. Like, whatever the offense is, whatever the issue is, we are letting go of this and we are moving on. So I really want to encourage you to add to your vocabulary when you apologize. I I'm sorry, you follow the ownership path that I gave you earlier. And then you say, will you forgive me? And so since I'm just mentioning it, I'm going to go back and come back to this. It's how we apologize well is we acknowledge the impact, we take ownership, we express genuine regret, we offer restitution or change, and then we say, will you forgive me? So, per my usual, I'm going to ask you some thought provoking questions. That's really important. These are the most important part of the podcast. If you listen to nothing else, listen to these questions and come back to them. First question: Where do I tend to over apologize? And is it connected to my fear of disconnection or something else? Where do I resist apologizing? Question 2. Where do I resist apologizing? What meaning am I assigning to being wrong? Number 3. How did I learn to use apologies in my family growing up? Number 4. What would it feel like to apologize without shame, but with clarity, with self leadership, with ownership? And number 5, what's one relationship that would benefit from a sincere, values aligned apology or a boundary instead? And as a side note, if you haven't listened to my episode on boundaries, it's legit. I'll link it in the podcast. So, friend, I really want you to just, as we're starting to wrap this one up, I really want you to think about auditing your language this week. Where do you really say that you're sorry that you don't need to? Look at your language. Practice values-based apologies in your journal, in a real relationship, coming back to ownership, coming back to regret, coming back to how you're going to change and do better. And then maybe you need to utilize affirmations in some way to rewire your over apologizing habits, because we need to learn to utilize this skill well and appropriately, that we say when we apologize when we need to, and then we don't when we don't, because it takes away from you as a person both ways. So, friend, I totally am grateful that you are here, that you listened. I want you to know that this is so important to me and that you matter. I want to hear about how these podcasts are impacting you. If you have a friend that over apologizes or under apologizes, maybe you need to send this to that bestie and go, hey, this is for you. And if you're ready to release the shame and stories behind over apologizing, under apologizing, book a breakthrough with me. Let's talk about it. Until next week,